Welcome to the Gentleman's Guide to Gaming. Yes, we are here again with another video made in response to those wonderful people who decided to back The World Below on BackerKit when we were running the campaign. As mentioned previously, I basically extended the offer to individuals who backed the campaign that if they backed at a certain level, they could by all means get in touch with me and request a video on any subject, and I would do my very best to record a video on that subject matter. And now there's quite a few videos stacked up for uploading. This is one I was really thinking about. This is one I was really considering quite deeply because it struck a nerve at first. I won't deny it irritated me, and Ashley, the person who requested it, that doesn't mean I'm irritated at you, I promise. But it's because it's a question that's often posed to me as an accusation. And the simple nature of it is, how can you or how can you work on material such as Pugmire, the Monarchies of Mao, or now Realms of Pugmire, and the Curious Cats of Mao, when you're the vampire guy? In other words, stay in your lane. That's often how it's expressed. It's, why are you wasting your time on games like this? Light-hearted games, fantasy games, games of a genre that I, the questioner, don't enjoy. Now, Ashley didn't phrase it exactly like that, but it brought to mind a lot of the criticism I got when I first announced that I was working on the They Came From RPGs, parody cinematic RPGs. Again, I'm mostly associated with Vampire the Masquerade, or was, and so the idea of me working on something with a more comedic vein, I think, well, it surprised some people, to put it mildly. But I wanted to focus specifically on Pugmire, on Mao, on Curious Cats of Mao. It was very well timed, actually, that with the crowdfunding campaign coming up for Curious Cats of Mao, which I'll link below so that you can be notified when it goes live. It is going to be a beautiful game. I've seen the art for it. I've already previewed a lot of the manuscript for it, and it is going to look amazing. So this is, what would the word be, appropriate. But, yeah, I wanted to focus on that angle. Because I admit, when most people, I guess, speak to me or interact with me when I'm gaming, they don't immediately think Realms of Pugmire. And yet, one of my first solo development jobs was Pan's Guide for New Pioneers for Pugmire. I co-wrote Monarchies of Mao. I co-wrote Pirates of Pugmire. And I suppose the question is, do I do these jobs, do I write on these books just for the money, or do I do it because I enjoy the material? And it's clearly a bit of both. I write professionally, it's my full-time job, and yet it helps a great deal to enjoy the material I'm working on. It's helped a great deal by the fact that the mind behind the Pugmire games is Eddie Webb, who is someone I greatly respect. I admire him and I consider him a friend. But it's also because of the thought, the heart, the depth that goes into games like this. I think at face value, games like Realms of Pugmire and Curious Cats of Mao, you look at them and you think, oh, you're playing animals in a D&D setting. And that's all there is to it. But each of these games has their own take on this, what is ultimately a post-apocalyptic game, where humankind has disappeared. It is a world where humankind at some point existed, and at some point, presumably via their actions, some animals were uplifted to a human level of intellect, and then, at some point, humanity disappeared. Were they wiped out? Did they leave the planet? Are they in hibernation somewhere? We don't know. That isn't something that's going to be answered in the books. But what it results in is a world that is half almost medieval fantasy and Renaissance fantasy, in the world that the dogs of Pugmire, the cats of Mao, are building up. but it's also half wreckage, debris, lost worlds and mysteries that you can pick through, that we as players will find, of course, innately familiar because there's a lot of human trappings, but to our player characters will seem completely alien. It's part of what attracts me to other games like Numenera as well, and let's think, Broken Rooms and Stalker. Those sorts of post-apocalyptic games, Mutant Year Zero too, where you are going through the wreckage of the past but finding wonders in that wreckage. Because you can play Pugmire, you can play Mao in a hopeless, nihilistic fashion if you want. You can make it feel like the end of the world and that nothing's going to get better. Hell, you're often attacking huge, oversized insects and alien-like creatures, almost of a cosmic horror bent. And so that can feel quite daunting. But it can also have that spirit of what I think a lot of people these days call hope punk, where you can utilize the tools, the technology, the innovations from the past to make your society better. Of course, there's always the risk that someone will get hold of a super weapon or a technology that is going to make life worse for your player characters and the people around them. And that's something that your characters, have to conflict with. But what it means for me as a creator and as a fan, as a role player, because I've ran both of these games, Realms of Pugmire, Pugmire, Monarchies of Mao, haven't run Curious Cats of Mao yet, for the main reason it isn't out yet. But again, if you're curious about it, you can click the link below and find out. I enjoy it because it puts characters in an interesting setup. It feels familiar. It feels comfortable at first because a lot of you will like dogs or will like cats or will own pets and will have affection for these things, and so you'll be able to play your characters in ways that you identify with the pets you own or who live with you and or who you had in the past. And yet you present them in a setting that is ultimately serious and mysterious and gives you so much room to explore, set up your own world. It's something I did a fair amount of with The World Below as well. I love the idea of survivors, of individuals and parties, communities that are trying to make the best of an unknown situation. It's not always a bad situation, but a situation that is unknown to them and can be threatening, but can also be highly joyous and exciting when something unexpected comes about. So when someone asks me, why do you enjoy Realms of Pugmire, or why do you work on Monarchies of Mao? Isn't that beneath you, they might say, or surely horror is your genre. Yes, horror is my genre, but no genre is beneath me, no game is beneath me. People are allowed to have multiple tastes, and it's one of those things that, one of those things that acts as a bugbear to me that is, I guess, on a similar vein, is when you watch an interview on YouTube, let's say, and let's say that interview is starring, let's say Graham Norton is speaking to Benedict Cumberbatch and speaking to Ralph Fiennes and speaking to Ian McKellen. They're all sat there. It's an incredibly masculine sofa. But let's say they're all sat there and they're all talking about their theatre work and the new independent movies they're in. There'll always be someone in the comments that says, lol, Graham Norton currently interviewing Doctor Strange, Voldemort, and Magneto. What a crossover. I get it. I get that you see people that you recognise from media and you think, well, that's all they can do. It's a familiar touchstone. But that isn't all they do. And likewise, when people say to me, why aren't you working on Vampire anymore? Or more specifically, why are you working on these things? Why do you run these things? Why do you play these things? I think, well, because I have more than one taste. And really, I can't recommend Pugmire and Mao highly enough. I spent a lot of time in the World of Darkness as a writer and as a developer, and I still go back there. Don't get me wrong. I'm still working fairly frequently on the board game side of things. But one of the side effects of working in horror quite a lot, I did some more cult work recently as well, is you need to come up for air. You need to play around in other toy boxes occasionally. You need to basically experiment with other genres. And it isn't just for therapy, it's also because you will be inspired in ways you didn't expect by playing in genres you don't typically dabble in, or with which you're not ordinarily associated. And so when I see Curious Cats of Mao, a game I have not worked on, I haven't worked on Curious Cats of Mao. I didn't work on Realms of Pugmire. In both cases, I had the opportunity, as I recall, and due to work demands or what have you, I declined very generous offers. But the desire to find out what these games contain, especially Curious Cats of Mao, which I'm very excited about when that comes out, is, well, it's a thrill to me. Because I don't want to work on every single game I play, and there's also the excitement of playing in wheelhouses that I am not, I guess, an instrumental part of their creation. It's great fun to play fantasy, just the same as people who love horror movies may like those Marvel superhero movies. They may enjoy going to the theatre and watching a Shakespeare play. They may enjoy listening to podcasts about Doctor Who but never watch the TV show. They may like reading literotica. You can have many tastes, and one does not diminish your enjoyment of the other. So Ashley, your question was, why do you work on games like Pugmire and Monarchies of Mao, and they came from, when your best work is in horror? Well, my fairest answer to you is my best work is very much subjective. Your tastes will determine what my best work is. But it's because I want to, and I can, and I enjoy it, and I highly recommend, based on the quality of these games, based on games like Realms of Pugmire, based on games like Curious Cats of Mao. Again, I haven't read it, so I can't attest to its quality, but I know with Eddie and Lauren Roy in the background on this book, it will be brilliant. That they're going to be games worth checking out. I look forward to the opportunity to working on games like this. I look forward to the opportunity to run games like this because it's exciting. It's a different muscle that I get to exercise when I get to do it. And so that's a very long-winded answer maybe to quite a simple question. I could have just said, well, because it's my choice, I'll work wherever I damn well like. But I appreciate the opportunity to provide context, and I hope it makes sense to you. I do love working on Vampire. I love working on Werewolf. I love working on Wraith and all the other horror games I've worked on. But I also love working on games that aren't those things, and sometimes I enjoy it more. Less expectation, more creative freedom, the ability to tell different stories in a completely different paradigm. And hell, I know I was talking about the potential post-apocalyptia side of Realms of Pugmire and Curious Cats of Mao, but it's also that it ties into my great enjoyment of history and of I guess, hierarchical setups. The idea that Pugmire has a very different hierarchy, a very different society to the monarchies of Mao. That cultural expectations in one are very different to the cultural expectations of the other. Their relationship to man or humankind and what they perceive humankind to be is very different from one to the other. And that, in a lot of ways, is how I like to think of the Camarilla and the Sabbat. And their relationship with Cain, or their relationship with history, or with elders, or so on. As soon as you start delving into these things, it becomes so much more than playing anthropomorphic mammals. And that's, of course, excluding by saying that the many birds and reptiles and such that you can actually play in Pirates of Pugmire. But it's a whole new fantasy world. So yeah, you can come into those games because you love books like Red Wall, or you enjoyed Warship Down, you sadist, or masochist, or The Animals of Farthingwood. Or you may well come into this game because you love fantasy, adventure, sorcery, history, the chance to explore post-apocalyptia from a completely different angle, or just because you want a breath of fresh air from the games you normally play. I'm given to understand Red Moon Roleplaying will soon have an actual play up of Curious Cats and Mouse, so I'm going to recommend that now without having heard it, because Red Moon Roleplaying always do brilliant actual plays. If actual plays don't tend to be your thing, if you don't generally enjoy listening to people play, I recommend Red Moon Roleplaying, because their editing of these games to make them appear as radio dramas effectively, it turns the medium into something that I enjoy. I can't listen to people play a game straight, but I love what Red Moon Roleplaying do, which is why I run so many games for them. So anyway, thank you so much for your question, Ashley. I hope I wasn't too bitter or acerbic or anything like that in response, but and I do imagine I was quite defensive, because I love these games. I love the fact that I can play all of these games behind me and that the vast majority of them aren't World of Darkness now, because, you know, we all have multiple tastes, and getting to work on all these things, play with all these things, is part of the, I guess, joy of working in this industry and being a role-playing hobbyist. You know, I'm running somewhere like 9 or 10 different games a month right now, and it isn't all the same game. They're not all horror, because I love loads of games. And Realms of Pugmire, Curious Cats of Mao, click that link to be notified when it goes live. You won't regret it. And in fact, if you do so, comment and let me know. I may have something special for you if you do. So, yeah. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and I will see you next time for another answer. This one will be vampire related, so check the next video out too. Thanks very much for watching.